My name is Amanda Bell. I grew up on a small family dairy farm outside of Sheboygan County, in rural Sheboygan County. I've worked a lot of jobs. I've been in factory. I've worked at a gas station, waitressed, bartended. You name it, I've probably done it. But one of the things I'm most proud of is for 24 years, I worked for the federal government as a water scientist. I've sampled rivers and streams across this country. Then, as the COVID pandemic started to happen, I actually became a leader and deputy director in the multi-state agency. I helped oversee a budget of $33 million of appropriated federal funds. I oversaw 13 facilities, 230 employees, and a 120 vehicle fleet. Through that, I learned really a lot about how the federal government works. I worked with people across the aisle, regardless of who they voted for. We had a mission, and we had to accomplish that mission. I've presented to Congress, and I've desperately love our natural resources. So kind of what things that I really want to focus on my campaign is I want to focus on the economy. We have a cost of living crisis. Our healthcare costs are increasing. Our housing availability is decreasing. Our living wage is not there. And all I see is corporations exploiting workers, getting more rich. We need an economy that works for the working people. Thank you. Second, I want to focus on the environment. As I said, I studied water for most of my life, and our natural resources are precious to me. We need to make sure that companies, again, are not exploiting our natural resources. Third is education. Since I've left the federal service, I've been substitute teaching in three rural schools in our community at Poinette, Partyville, and Rio. So education is so important. Lastly, I want to evolve. I want to listen. I am a servant leader, and that's what I want to do for you.
Hi, everyone. My name's Brad Smith, and I'm also running for Congress here in the 6th District. I'm a lifelong Wisconsinite. I have Norwegian grandparents who are dairy farmers in the central part of Wisconsin. I was born in a one-stop sign town called Larson in Winnebago County, which is actually by Mikesville, if anybody knows where that is. Also, equally as unnotable at the time. But So my dad started out actually working at the feed mill in Larson, and my mom waited tables at the supper club. So those are a pretty humble start, and from there, they gave my sister and I a really great middle-class life in Neenah, Wisconsin. So after graduating from Neenah High School, I met my wife of now 20 years, life partner, and we went on to Stevens Point. Anybody who knows that school. Our deep love of conservation and sustainability really took root there. From there, I went on to do an MBA through the UW system, and then also enlisted in the Wisconsin National Guard, where as a staff sergeant, I was deployed in 2005 to Kuwait and led 12 soldiers. During that time, I also earned the Federal Humanitarian Service Award for work we did helping with FEMA recovery support operations after Hurricane Katrina. So for the last 17 years, we've called Mequon home. We are busy raising 2 young boys, and I co-coach a Lego robotics team. And in my career, I've helped grow companies through digital. So from startups to Fortune 500s, I've helped people launch products ranging from sustainability software that measures carbon emissions to apps for electric motorcycles, and I also helped grow a Wisconsin company as an executive from a penny stock to being, oh, thank you, Mary, to a company on the NASDAQ. So what's brought me here is I'm horrified by what I see around us. The story of my family that gave us our middle-class lifestyle, American dream, is becoming impossible for people today. People working full-time jobs don't believe they can afford a home or raise a family. And so my focus is creating a fair economy for everyone, education and training for every path, and also access to high-quality health care for everyone. And so I ask for your help and support to doing just that. It crosses across the party lines, and that's where I aim to work. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Mike Heidenreich, and I, like these fine folks, I'm running for Congress in this district. And I didn't think I would be doing this at this time. I got involved in politics relatively young. When I was just out of high school, I got really involved with politics. I was working probably 90 hours a week on the Obama campaign in '08, and we were having a great time. We saw him win, and we thought, oh, the country's turned a corner. We had such hope for the future. And I thought, okay, I think they'll really be able to handle it. So I stopped. I joined a union. The union that I celebrated that election in was Local 965 for IBEW. And I have been in that union ever since, working down at the power plant down the road. And I would have been happy with that life. But a few years ago, I realized things are not going the way I thought they were going to go. And I realized when you don't take part, when you don't actually actively affect things, someone else is going to. And you may not like what they do. And so some people in this room actually said to me, hey, we know some people running for office in your area. Would you help out? You've done this before. And I went and helped out, and it was wonderful. But I realized I needed to do more. And so I decided to run for office. And then eventually this came up, and I decided to run for Congress. Now, my focus, universal health care, education, and right now, we have too many people who have bought out of the American dream. They don't believe it's possible, and frankly, as things are, they're right. So my focus is to give them that hope back, because if we don't, they're not going to buy into that system, and they're not going to take part. And I won't try Mary.
Good. All right. Good morning, folks. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to be here on this cold day and spending your Saturday morning with us. My name is Aaron Wojciechowski, or Wojo for short. Easier to say, fits better on a yard sign. But I'm one of your Democratic candidates running not only against Glenn Grothman, but to hopefully make your lives better and give you better representation. So my background is primarily in education. I worked for the Oshkosh Area School District for a number of years teaching kids. And while doing that, while being a student at UW-Oshkosh, I had the honor of serving 3 terms, 6 years in local government, 4 on the Winnebago County Board and 2 on the Oshkosh City Council during COVID, during unprecedented times. So I bring a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge to this role and what I would bring to Congress. And so coming from a low-income working-class family, I understand that affordability for so many is the top issue, and that is my focus. And my vision is very clear and what I want to do. Uplift the working poor, grow the middle class, and hold the rich and powerful accountable. And so my whole platform, which we'll talk about later, is set on things that address affordability, making healthcare more affordable and accessible by moving towards Medicare for all, holding corporations accountable for low wages that force people on welfare programs when they would rather just be making a livable wage, protecting our environment, making sure our schools are funded, and you name it, anything that we can do to address affordability are my top priorities. So throughout this conversation, I look forward to just answering your questions so you can learn more about me, about my platform. You can also go to wojoforcongress.com to learn more about me or my background. But thank you again for being here, and I look forward to getting to know more.
I hate the timer more than anything else. I timed everything, so it's plus or minus 5 seconds for every single thing. All right, let's start that timer.
Well, hang on, I'm going to start it again.
See, laughing will count me 5 seconds in there.
Okay.
Contemplation is the opportunity to reflect on where we have been and where we are. For most of us, the month of December has more times to reflect than any other month. I remember December 11th, which was last Thursday, as a day to I entered adulthood 44 years ago. Think PG thoughts, people. That snow December day was much like the one today. On that day, I took a Greyhound to the big city of Milwaukee, and I had never been on a bus to stay overnight in a hotel. I was young, idealistic, and innocent. I was ready to start an adult life. You see, I had been officially an adult for 5 days. After completing my military physical with all the other lost inductees in line, the cadre asked me what I wanted to do in the Army. I had no idea. It was then I raised my hand, and with 30 other service members, I swore allegiance to the Constitution. I earned my commission as a second lieutenant when I was 28 years old. I learned that a leader's job is to be selfless and create opportunities for success. A leader lends a helping hand to lift people so that they can become winners. I'm running for Congress because the lack of leadership in Washington today, and that doesn't apply to all those people that don't look after people. When people ask me how we're going to win a 60-40 district like the 6th, I tell them that we need to concentrate on the basic needs of people who live here. We need to make sure that people can afford the food on their tables, the roof over their heads, and the education to open the doors to a better life. Above all, we need to start talking with one another again.
Well, marvelous, thank you all. So for the next section, for these questions, and we have 4 questions, each candidate will have 1 minute to respond. So the first question is,
Wait, hang on. And so, you know, do you guys want a 30-second warning, or is that just gonna screw you up?
It's
Well,
fine.
just do the minute.
Okay.
And, you know, I mean, just so everybody knows, this is, we're not trying to be mean.
No, we're fine. It's
Trying to,
okay.
like, help people get their elevator speech
Understand.
ready. So, okay. So let me do a minute. Okay, all right.
okay, so what experience in leadership roles or political roles do you have that will make you a good candidate? Go ahead.
Oh, thank you, guys. Okay, so as I mentioned before, I've been in federal work for 25 years. As the deputy director, I helped move the office of 120 people. During COVID, we've worked through multiple crises. We've worked through changes in leadership, changes in administration. I have worked with people at state, local, federal, and tribal and international agencies, regardless of political affiliation. I've been nominated and received award for Civil Servant of the Year from my colleagues from the Minnesota Federal Executive Board. My leadership experience is based on servant leadership. I want to make sure that I'm working for the folks that I'm working for. Never once have I gone into a room and said, I know what you all need, and I'm going to do it for you. No, that never works. I want to sit down and I want to listen. Tell me what things you need, and I want to do those for you.
All right, Mary, you can tell me when we're on, and then we'll go.
You're on.
All right, thank you. So, you know, leadership has been a constant, a through line, really through my professional journey. It started, like I mentioned, served in the military when I was 23. I ended up being responsible for 12 soldiers in, you know, a conflict overseas. And so that really teaches a lot about service, sacrifice, and how to marshal people to a common goal, especially from different backgrounds. So that was a really interesting lesson in leadership and ambiguity and challenge. And then since then, I've worked, you know, in business and helping grow and launch things internationally. So I've actually launched products on the ground in Japan. I've launched products on the ground in England, in Ireland, and I think it's really important when you're in Congress to be able to also have a global perspective and understand other cultures and global level issues along with national issues. So that's something that I think has equipped me well to be able to negotiate, to do the horse trading that is necessary to get things done, which is a key part of Congress. We've had a lack of that lately, and I understand working across aisles to get people to your goal, right? And then lastly, I've also been a leader in my community with kids, robotics, et cetera. So thank you. Thanks, man. Let me know when.
You're in.
This will be the 7th political campaign I've worked on, or in this case, ran. And I have been increasingly involved in every single one. But I'd say numbers-wise, probably when we had about 300 volunteers under our direct group during the Obama campaign, it made me develop a lot of the skills necessary to, at that time I was only 24, it made me develop a lot of the skills necessary to not just connect with people, but also direct them where to, you know, where their skills would be best used. And that is one of the hardest things. As a candidate, you're not directly doing a lot of the work. You have to find good people who can help you do the work. And that is probably the greatest skill you can achieve as a candidate, is finding the right people. So I think that's a very useful skill to have.
Good. So at 19, I was elected to the Winnebago County Board, where I beat the Republican-backed incumbent. 2 years later, I was reelected unopposed, and during that time, I served on the Information Systems Committee and the Legislative Committee, where we improved infrastructure, technological infrastructure for the county, especially in our very rural areas, and worked with state and federal legislators to just better our outcomes when we're working with them. At 24, I was elected to the Oshkosh City Council during the height of COVID in a 7-way primary, winning the most amount of votes in the primary and then second most in the election. And during that time, I served on the Sustainability Advisory Board and our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, where, again, we improved outcomes. We actually implemented plans that had been kind of sitting in the drafts for a very long time. And so my experience is about public service, getting results done, and winning elections, and I'm going to take that same experience here in Congress. Thank you.
I have 3 categories that prepared me for becoming a good candidate. First, being a company commander in the Army Reserve, where soldiers and our mission always came first. If they seceded, I seceded. The second category was I was a Peace Corps volunteer in West Africa. The whole world is interconnected, whether we like it or not. Resources, technology, and our planet's survival depend on us recognizing that we are all in this together. And the last category is I was a child abuse investigator, mental health case manager, corrections officer, and a mental health teacher. I have learned to shut my mouth, listen, and see all sides of an issue. I have learned to have empathy and not be surprised when I see the good or the evil in somebody's heart. It is interesting for me to see what is making a person act the way they are. A little bit of psychology does a lot.
Thanks, John.
All right. Question number 2. Pick one policy issue that is important to you. Why and how would you address it?
And 1 minute for each question, is that right, Dick?
Yep.
Okay.
So picking one policy issue. Yikes, right? So my policy issue that I really want to focus on today is the economy and the cost of living. We are getting crushed by the cost of health care. The amount and cost just for premiums and deductibles are insane, let alone prescription drugs. So one thing I would love to see is a cap on prescription drugs and a cap on deductibles per year. Nobody should die and go bankrupt. That is not okay. So the other part of that is making sure we have enough affordable housing. What I'm seeing in a lot of communities is that there's companies coming in and buying up houses or buying up rental properties, and then they become a monopoly. So they are then dictating what all of the cost of housing is in that area. So it's really hard for somebody who's just starting out to be able to even afford a home, let alone try to, make enough money to buy rent when these larger companies are just jacking up the rent.
Nice. So policy issue I'm most passionate about and brings me into this is healthcare access. My son recently ended up with a breathing issue actually just a month ago, and he was hospitalized in Children's, and he got amazing care. But we have good private healthcare insurance. What they say is what's working here. And we got a $4,600 bill by text afterwards. And that's the best case scenario. So I was looking at my son breathing and his ability to live, or what could be financial ruin for many families. And I don't see how that's acceptable in this, the wealthiest country this world has ever known. So we've seen how transformative the impacts can be of healthcare that's available to everyone. When people are working, they're spending, they're reinvesting in our economy, they're reinvesting in their families. So we've seen how to do this. Every other first world country has insurance that's available or accessible health care to everyone, and I don't see why we should not as well. So no American should be denied routine preventative care, and no American should ration life-saving medication because they can't afford it. So that's my focus.
I feel like a lot of us are going to have the same one. But it's something that is going to come to the forefront of everybody's mind, especially in this next year, when people's premiums for ACA plans triple in many cases, not just a few, many. People right now are looking at this as this is our only option, that we don't have another option. But the fact is, we do. We just haven't mustered the political will to make it happen. We have the ability to actually have single payer, Medicare for all. It doesn't really matter what you call it. It's the ability to have the same doctor you have the same health care, the same quality of care that you have, but actually have the government say, no, you can't just charge an arm and a leg for it. There is no reason our health is a billionaire's profit, and that is something we can achieve.
So generally, affordability is where my issues lie, but specifically, as others have mentioned, healthcare. And so one policy that I'm very supportive of, especially as we see, as Mike had said, at the end of this year, your premiums are going to double or triple. Over 40 million people will become uninsured because of the decision of Republicans in Washington to not extend these tax credits. And so earlier this week, I actually released a full in-depth plan about my Medicare for All, Wojo's version, plan that goes into detail about how we actually get this policy passed. Because if Democrats aren't in control in 2026 in the next legislative session, it's not going to go where. So we need to make sure that the plan that we're putting forward addresses the issues that they're going to come up with. And I'm proud to say that my plan gets us to Medicare for all without raising taxes on the low and middle class. And that's something that's important because we don't want to break the bank even more and make you have to pay more. And so I would encourage you to go read that plan. I'd love to talk about it more, but Medicare for all, I think, is the top issue for us.
I'm glad I didn't take health care. Affordability in tech schools and state colleges. I have twin sons that are going to my Christmas present and Eau Claire, and they are in their final semester of college. I had to go to the Army in order to pay for college, and I didn't even ask what my specialty was going to wind up being when I did. We should stress careers that the tech colleges are preparing students for. Tech schools work with local businesses to offer courses that prepare students for in-demand jobs. The placement level is 90% after 6 months of graduation, so they're there. I was also a prison teacher for the state of Wisconsin. We're certified through the tech schools in our area. I spent 7 years teaching GED math to countless inmates. For every level of education that we give an inmate, the chances of them coming back are 50% less. It cost the state. I guess I didn't time that one right.
No, you did fine. Got it.
Thank you. Question 3. Could you describe your campaign plan? Include your plan for team building, fundraising, and media.
So I am not independently wealthy. So a lot of my campaign finances is going to be reliant on small donors. And anytime I do get a larger donation, my plan is to be fully transparent and only accept funds from agencies and organizations that align with my values. As far as building a campaign team, I really am going to rely on volunteers that I meet at community events, listening sessions, and outreach events within the community. As far as the media goes, I think that we have an incredible opportunity on digital media and social media to reach out to people that may not be coming to these meetings. There's a lot of folks out there that have zero desire to come and declare themselves either Republican or Democrat right now, and those are the people I think we actually need to reach out to the most and show them that there is a better way to live in this country. And then, okay. All right.
All right. So similarly, I don't have benefactors and I'm not running and paying for this myself, but what I am doing is working on building a team. That's something I have a lot of experience doing, a lot of different contexts. So I actually have a campaign staff now that are all volunteers, very experienced volunteers, about 14 so far. I have a CEO of a credit union who's my treasurer. I have people who work at the university who are helping with marketing, with graphic design, with photography, videography. So I've got a pretty good team of folks who really know what they're doing and want to see change who are in this with me. So that's helping me run a really efficient campaign because they are putting in sweat equity just like I am here. So that's, I think, the most important thing. Other thing I'm doing is building out infrastructure in each county here in the 6th District. It's going to be difficult, and we have a lot of rural areas. And so I have county captains I'm putting into each county and have a number in place already who are marshaling other volunteers in the area, which is what we need to do to get the word out and get more exposure outside of our circles. So that's the kind of ground game focus. I'm also doing fundraisers, one a month in each county so far. Thank you.
That is actually the area I would say that I've enjoyed the most, is meeting all the wonderful people who have come out and said, hey, I can do this, let me help. And it's been amazing to build out a team of people who are, I would not be able to do this without them. And I think that we really, as a group, have been blessed with a lot of people who have, some of them are in this room, who have come out and helped us develop our campaign. Now, as for specifically, one of the media things that has been really taking off recently has been online. We are meeting a lot of people who are not able to come to an event like this or not willing to come to a Democratic Party event like this, but they're willing to talk to you. And it affords you the ability to actually interact with someone in an environment that they might not otherwise be there. And that's given me the ability to meet a lot of people who I wouldn't have otherwise.
So having run for office before, I knew going into this what was going to be necessary, what I needed to do before even announcing. And running for Congress is a completely different ballgame. And so one of the first things I did was hire a national Democratic strategist to help us connect with these national organizations that are going to be needed, one, to bring attention, but also resources to this district. Because right now they don't see it as a viable race that's going to win. But I'm making sure to do the work to change that. So whoever the nominee is will get that support. And so in addition to that, working with different organizations to get lists, to make fundraising calls every single day, reach out to voters, and be as visible on social media and in person as possible. And I'm proud to have been one of the leading candidates right now in fundraising as of yet, on social media, reaching thousands of people who otherwise wouldn't be in the fold, and talking to folks who aren't just Democrats. I had the opportunity to speak at the Libertarians Fox Valley meeting, and they welcomed me, even though they don't necessarily agree with me on everything. We're finding those common areas because they're tired of what's happening.
I am not actively fundraising at this time. This is not to say I won't take donations, but I am not sponsoring events simply to raise money. I'm a frugal person who feels uneasy accepting money from people when all that is needed until the primary is to sell myself. There will come a time this spring when I have to reevaluate this, and I will. I prefer to have small donors because it shows confidence in me. I will take larger donations. I would have to scrutinize whether those companies are in line with my campaign vision. Large donors need to understand that they are sharing my values, and my goals are always to get the most for our district. I'm willing to spread my campaign duties out to start delegating to the right people. I just don't have them at the time. Delegating responsibilities will make the campaign process a lot more enjoyable for me, where I can just be myself.
All right. Last question. As we wrap up this forum, please take your final minute to share the one main takeaway that you want voters to remember about you as a candidate.
Thanks, Dick. So I think the last thing that I want to just reemphasize is I've gone through the challenges that other people have faced in this district. Growing up on a farm, working in factories, working as a waitress, teaching, serving our communities in our church and our scouting, and doing things that really mean connecting with other people. My biggest focus is I want to listen, I want to serve, and I want to lead with integrity for every person in the 6th District.
So I think my focus here is we have so much more that actually is in common here for everybody who's lived in the 6th through your life, whether rural, suburban, or urban, and the things we need and want. But we're being divided, and it's being intentional, and it's to take advantage, because when we're fighting, it's to the benefit of the people who don't want us to do things like fight for healthcare for everyone. So my focus is I am very much pushing all of the different platforms and ideas and necessities that we agree upon, but I'm also reaching out to folks in the rural areas, because there are a lot of disaffected conservatives, I would call them, who are looking, and they agree that this is madness, and they're looking for someone they can trust to come over. And I'm happy to say I've had a few people donate already and join as county captains, like in Waushara, as an ex-Republican that I have on board. And that's how we have to do this. We don't have enough of us simply to do it alone, and we shouldn't really, because we need to find a way to work together again. And that's really my intent, is fight hard, fight like hell, but it's really against the folks who are taking advantage of us and kind of billionaires and special interests, not each other. So that's my goal, work together to get change done. Thank you.
That brings to mind one of the things that has been the hallmark of my campaign, and that is we're not going to win this unless we win it with everybody. And I'm not just talking the people in this room. We have to reach out to people we have not talked to in a long time, because this was a 60-40 district last time around. And I'm not going to rely. We need to win everywhere, and we need to do it now. So we have to reach out to people who we may not agree with on everything, but it's time we started getting them to realize that the things we do agree on are more important than the things we disagree on. And I've been very successful at that so far. I've had a lot of people who have been telling me I voted for, well, Trump 3 times and Glenn Grothman 4 times, but I'm going to vote for you. And that's the kind of turnaround we need to make. And I think we have a group of candidates who can do that.
Thank you again for having us here. Once again, my name is Aaron Wojciechowski, or Wojo for short. My upbringing really did shape my values and my priorities, which again is uplifting the working poor, growing the middle class, and holding the rich and powerful accountable. And how we do that, how we win, I believe, is by leading with empathy, delivering on actual policy solutions, and calling out the BS that's coming from the other side. And so this next year, I just look forward to hopefully earning your vote, talking more about my platform and priorities, and working alongside these great other candidates to make sure that in the end, we win and defeat Glenn Grothman in 26. Thank you.
I guess I may not have said my name. My name is John Mako. I'm from Oshkosh. I am a fiscally conservative Democrat who sees most of the issues as a complex set of problems that are interwoven, not the least among them being special interests that distort the issues for financial gain. One of the most important pieces, however, is to listen to people and see how the issues are affecting them. I have always enjoyed listening to people because it has given me a better picture of how things are interconnected. I am comfortable talking with people of all backgrounds, from the little boys wanting to share the roasted toads in the Sahel of West Africa, to the family living week to week in mobile home park because they can't afford to pay by the month, to the Vietnam vet flying a MAGA flag and looking forward to going fishing on the Lower Fox, to the 30-year-old inmate who is serving his last years of an 8-year drug conviction and hoping that there will be some employer to give him a second chance. Seeing people, guess I didn't time that one right either.
Well, thank you. That's the end of our formal questions, but I think we have some questions from the audience.
And then we're going to go into the questions from the audience. I did combine a few of them just in the nature of time constraints. And it was brought to our attention that we started with the same person each time, so we're going to start with a different person each time. And did we decide 1 minute or a minute and a half? Okay, you'll have a minute and a half on these. And we're going to start on the end with John first, and then we'll just rotate each question. And again, each person will have an opportunity to answer these questions, but we're going to shift it up so it's not the same person each time starting. All right. Have you gotten responses from newer and younger voters from your social media efforts?
Yes.
And we're good with short answers, but if you want to elaborate, that's good.
Most of my social media people are younger people. It is not the over 50 crowd. It is the under 30 crowd. It is very rare that I will get somebody that is older than that. And that is my emphasis in a college town like Oshkosh, is to be around the college students.
Thank you. Yeah, I think being the youngest candidate here, I grew up with social media, so I feel like I'm pretty savvy with it. But I think one advantage is understanding where each app, each platform, how it differs in audience. And so Facebook, much more content heavy. I like to write a lot, and so I do a lot on Facebook. And we recently had a post that garnered over 1,000 interactions, over 300 comments, and it was for the most part positive, but you get a couple trolls here or there. But I always take that as a great opportunity to engage with them, and you'll have people who shoot back, but I always respond with respectable dialogue, and I think that's important. But TikTok, reaching younger people, demographics, Twitter, X, all of these different platforms I'm on and have been getting a lot of engagement. And I think young people like seeing another young person running for office. It inspires them, especially when they're feeling so cynical about politics these days and how toxic it's become. So, I was chatting with some folks back there who serve in local government, and one of them is just turned 30. I'm almost turning 30. So, it's just great to see more young people involved in politics. But yeah, I think social media is one of our strengths, and how we're reaching a lot of voters who don't like when someone comes to their door knocking or who calls them randomly up, because a lot of people are feeling that way now, and it's nice to be able to engage when you want and how you want.
Yeah, actually, more than even I thought I would. When I got onto TikTok especially and started talking to people about politics, all of a sudden people were coming out of the woodwork to talk back, and it was... I don't think people realize how much across this nation there is a movement of people who realize now's the time to do this. And there are very good candidates running for Congress across the country. And I've talked to so many people, not just across the country, but even in our district. I've had pretty good contact with a lot of seniors in high school, actually, are starting to realize that they're going to be able to vote in the next election, and this is their country, and this is what they're going to deal with for college. And so that's one area where I really have been getting a lot of people actually talking to me and be like, what can I do to get involved? Because next year, this is going to affect me, and affect me a lot. And that age is probably the best, other than retirees, because they have time and because this is directly affecting them. And so, yeah, on social media, that's most of the people I've been talking to are younger than me.
All right. So yeah, I've been engaging with folks kind of across the spectrum, and it's funny. I wonder also where you draw the line on younger voters, because it's funny. As I've been out there in business, I've got some salt and pepper starting, and I'm now not the young, chicken. And it's funny because then you get involved in politics, and people are like, "It's great to see somebody young and engaged," and I'm in my early 40s, right? which is wonderful. I'm having a rejuvenation here. But I do have a lot of folks who are engaging. My cohort, which I guess that's why I say it depends where you draw the line and younger. I brought in a lot of friends, family, and broader people from there, and now it's getting further out where, again, like these guys mentioned, there's different channels where people engage. So my cohort, especially, Instagram is a great place, and we see a lot of engagement. And then we've got the really younger folks who are out there starting to engage with the campaign, where I have actually an amazing intern who just was jumping up and down and wanted to volunteer. And he's the chair of College Democrats in his high school, and he helped create that. So he is awesome. He's a powerhouse. He actually helps run the Ozaukee County Democrats, part of their social. So he was super passionate about coming on board. And I've also had university students who have helped kind of facilitate discussions, and I've started to have some listening sessions at the universities in the district. So UW-Oshkosh, Ripon College working on that, Marian University in Fond du Lac. And so it's nice because between the intern, Ethan, who's a really younger guy and about to be going to college, and then another guy who's actually, a member, just graduated out of college, they're able to help ground me in what they're seeing and hearing. So thank you.
Thanks, Brad. So one of the interesting things I'm noticing is that depending upon kind of where you are in your generational pendulum, it depends upon which apps you use most. As they were saying, Instagram, Twitter, not on Twitter, absolutely not. TikTok, Blue Sky, Facebook, like you have to be on all of them because depending upon who's looking at it, I actually found YouTube is another place that is incredibly engaging. People really like to go there for the longer information, and it's an opportunity to make sure that you're getting out to both the younger audiences and the older audiences. Also, I agree with you, Brad. Like, I really appreciate that everyone's like, oh, you're such a young lady coming out to do this. Well, thank you. I'm not going to tell you how old I am. But I appreciate that. And I actually think that relying on the experience and knowledge of folks that are a little bit older than me, but having the energy and enthusiasm of folks that are younger is really what it rejuvenates me, because I can rely on those folks that have also been there, done that, and then get that energy boost from the younger folks. So, all right.
All right, then we'll go to Aaron. So there were two questions that were along the same lines. What should the Democratic messaging be in light of your work in Congress should you be elected? And then, what do you see as the key issue or, again, messaging around that in a productive and positive way?
Yeah. No, thank you for those great questions. I think generally, and I think many will agree in kind of what I talked about earlier, but keeping the messaging focused on the issues that are really impacting everyday working people like myself and folks up here. Affordability is a huge issue, and it really does cut across the political divide, whether it is people who can't afford groceries, rent, healthcare. It impacts us all. And Twitter, while it has become much more far right, for me, it has been a great perspective on how people on the right are actually feeling about the Trump administration. And it's been a great insight that there are a lot of people on the right who are not happy with the administration. They voted for him, but now they don't feel comfortable with how far he's going, whether it be with deportations or pretending that affordability doesn't exist or not actually addressing the Epstein files. You name it. There are very specific issues where we can reach these voters and where I have been engaging with them. And it really is just about, at the end of the day, talking to them like a normal human being. I had a post on X, and it was very simple. It was about how the housing crisis and how housing is the most unaffordable it's been in history. And I shared that, and pretty much all I said was, I wish I could one day afford a house so I could start a family, but instead we're sending billions of dollars to other foreign nations or to support wars. And it got over 1 million views. And because it resonates with people, just everyday conversations. So I would say that should be the messaging, focusing on affordability and kitchen table conversations.
I think that the message that the Democratic Party should be talking is pretty simple, and I've seen it out there. I've seen people enunciate this very well, and it's real simple. There is no left and right. There is all of us on the bottom and then a bunch of people up top who want to direct what we do on a daily basis and have been basically creating division among us for some time. I'm not saying there aren't people who want to do things that are very much not in our interest, but they're not the majority and they never have been. What's happened is people who make way more money than we will ever see in our entire lifetimes decided that the best way to get us to not ever achieve what we want and achieve what they want is to basically create division among us. And I think when you really get down to it, we can look at everyone in this room and everyone in this state and pretty much say there maybe are one or two people who we have don't have commonality with. That's it. Everyone else, we're all facing the same problems. And when you really get down to it and focus on that, people start to see, oh, I've been focusing this whole time on the differences between us instead of the things we really need to focus on together.
All right, thanks, Mike. So I think one of the things that I feel we need is, productive fight. I feel like we've had a lot of rolling over in our party, and the Democrats have now been viewed as one that can be steamrolled. And so I want to do a lot of bipartisan work, and I want to focus on the issues that we share together. But we need to fight, and this is not going to be easy, and it's okay to think big, and it's okay and necessary to dream big. And I think one of the things that I look at is, I don't know, it feels like an analogy of the frog in the pot that the temperature's slowly been turned up on. And over my life and my time, I've watched things get more and more expensive, just like that instance with my son. And, we've got women who, just like that bill that Voss is blocking, right? Women whose mammogram is inconclusive and they need an MRI and now they're going to have to pay for it. When did we accept that the burner is on all the way, right? And it's harming so many people, and it's been this slow progress. So we need to think a lot bigger, and we need to fight for it. And we can work together. We can marshal people, but I think there's also opportunities to get people who are not looking to be career politicians and are not on the take and are not constantly compromising positions because they want to stay a politician. So when I look at this, I talked about I've done a tour of duty before and left. I don't really, living in Washington or being there most of the time is not probably my ideal of an amazing place to be every day versus the wonder that is Wisconsin. But we can treat that like a tour of duty, right? Go there for 2 years, work hard, fight where you need to for what people need, and don't make it a lifetime career.
So one of the things I think is missing from the Democratic Party's messaging is the loss of integrity. I want to see integrity, I want to see transparency, and I want to see follow through. There's been a lot of, we're going to, I think we should, but not a lot of actual doing. One of the things is, I kind of always laughed when I was working for the USGS. Folks would always be like, you want to get something done? You tell Amanda, she's the fixer, she's the doer, she's going to be getting it done. But the other part, they were always like, and she'll tell us what's going on when it's happening. It's not a matter of, I'm going to rub shoulders over here with Brad, and then y'all are going to not know what's going on. I might talk to Brad, but then I'm going to be like, hey, we talked, and this is what we came up with. What do y'all think? Because if we lose that integrity, we lose the trust. But if we have that transparency, we can gain a lot more trust, and it won't matter who anybody voted for, as long as they have the trust and belief that we are actually representing the people that we are supposed to. So.
I believe we need to concentrate on the issue of what is important to people. We got away from that. We got away from thinking of people want to take care of their basic needs, as Maslow said in psychology. They want to be fed, they want to have a roof over their head, they want to have the money and the job to be able to create those opportunities. But we also dumbed down the problem as a party. We dumbed down saying the cost of insurance is too high. People are going to lose it. Well, the insurance companies are the only people that are telling people to stop charging so much. But they can't. They can't tell these drug companies to stop charging $2,000 for this drug that cost them $5 to make. They can't stop an MRI from costing $1,000. I don't know what it is now. They can't stop them from doing that. They're being charged that. They're being told that they have to pay it. So somebody has to say no, and right now it's the insurance companies. Well, we need to stop thinking that the insurance companies are all the bad guys. They're just trying to say we can't run a business by paying out all these charges that are being charged us.
All right, the next question is, to win, you need to understand your opponent's strengths and weaknesses. What are Glenn Grothman's strengths and weaknesses? Sorry, Mike, it's the rotation.
I heard that. Glenn Grothman's strength is something a lot of people get really annoyed with. He's always around, but he shows up at things. And that is something I have been doing since day one. I've put about 50,000 miles on my car since I started campaigning, showing up, being at places, talking to people in places. This is, at the very basic level, this campaign is going to be getting our face and our name into a person's head of, oh, I know them. That is the simple form of politics that Glenn Grothman is actually pretty good at, unfortunately. His weakness, literally everything he has done in office. And I'm not saying that from a standpoint of he doesn't know how to pass laws. It's what he's passing. You can look and tell who his donors are. They're generally insurance companies because most of the laws that he's passed that didn't have an obvious end goal of pleasing someone else were for insurance companies. You could look at what he sponsors. And I think that those are things we can attack him on and say, look, this guy is not doing anything for you. He sponsored a bill to reopen Alcatraz. And if nothing else, that isn't even in this district.
That would be interesting. All right. So as far as Glenn's strengths, I think Mike nailed it. He is around the people, and he does go to different things of every stripe. I mean, it can be everything from, as people joke, brat fries to veterans events to Farmers Bureau meetings. He does show up. He is not particularly engaged when he goes there. If you talk to a lot of folks, he tends to be present, but not, I would say, present. Then there's the food, which everybody jokes about. But I did, I was talking with a member of the Ripon City Council actually last night. She did say she was working in Fond du Lac, and he showed up and gave a check from, I think they did some fundraising for an organization for women there. So he has done some things in the community. The problem is those are dribs and drabs in small local spots, and to curry, I think, favor and to stay present, right? At large, when we talk about his weakness, he's gone on the record voting against, of course, everything that I think we all talk about, but even people who are his core constituents. So farmers want modernized infrastructure, roads, broadband, and he's voted against that, right, when they were working to tear down the Infrastructure Act. He also has voted against the Violence Against Women Act, which helps protect women from being battered or at risk of being killed, right? That's unconscionable. So you've got him going against farmers, you've got him going against women, you've got him going against families. The big ugly bill is removing health care from 30,000 people here in the 6th District. So actually recently on social media, I went out there and said, Glenn, who do you work for? 78% of people across party lines want the extension of the subsidies, and he's voted against that. So lots of weaknesses. Thank you.
So now I understand how you guys felt when it was like the same thing over and over. So like one of the other things that I think Glenn is really good at is towing the party line. Like, if he is told to vote on something by the Republican Party, he will vote on it, and if it's a Democratic thing, he will absolutely not. Surprisingly, the only thing he actually voted on that wasn't a full-on Republican thing has been the Epstein files, and I'm pretty sure he didn't really want to. But regardless of that, the other thing that I think is one of his weaknesses is his ability to actually answer questions. How many times have you seen him actually finalize a town hall where he didn't get flustered or leave? Where he didn't basically just shut it down because he didn't want to answer the questions anymore? I've had several interactions with him where I've asked him direct questions, and he just looked at me, turned around, and left. And I'm like, what? But we were, okay. So as Brad was mentioning, the things that bother me the most about what he has done so far is voting against women, voting against farmers. When he says that money is not as important to females because they've got a man that can take care of them. I love my husband, and he is incredible, and he has also been an incredible provider, but so am I. So just making sure that he is held accountable for the things that he is voting against his constituents.
I think Glenn's strength is that he shows up everywhere. What he doesn't do is he doesn't accept people for who they are or where they're at. You can talk to him, but he doesn't necessarily want to go ahead and hear that, so he will say something really stupid. My son came out this spring, and he told me he was gay after I went to a meeting. I went on a blind date, and he also went on a blind date, and he told me about his, and okay. And it was a struggle for me at the time, and I cried to a certain member in the audience here, and we got through it together, and I am best friend, or I love being around his partner now. But Glenn doesn't like the LGBTQ committee, LGBTQ plus, and there's a bunch of letters now that my son has told me, and he does not like that community, and that really bothers me a lot.
So for those of you who have been in the political realm in this region for a while, you'll probably know some of these names: Mark Harris, Sarah Lloyd, Jessica King, Dan Cole. These were all previous candidates who have run against Glenn Grothman and were chosen as the nominee. And one of the first things I did was call them up and ask and, get their advice and say, you ran against this guy. What is your advice? What were, where should I hit him? Where should I not even go towards? And overwhelmingly, like everyone else has said, one of the constant things was he shows up. He's everywhere. Whether you want him to be or not, he'll be there. He probably won't be as engaged. Most of the time, he just shows up to make an appearance and leaves. And so for me, what I'm trying to do is, be parallel to him, be there, but actually be engaged. If you ever go on any of his social media accounts, you'll see he has hundreds of comments for people who are just who don't like him. They don't like him. They're asking questions, and I have never once seen him respond to a comment. Not even like staff. He has staff to do this for him, and they're not doing that. How many of you have emailed his office and got that automated response, but no actual response? Me as well. And so, what he's good at is being around, and he's decent at fundraising. That's one of the biggest challenges. Is he has a lot of big supporters, corporate PACs supporting him, all these different special interests. But he's been kind of slowly going down over these last few fundraising cycles, which shows that he's losing momentum. And so, where I disagree with him, obviously everyone else said, but it really is just being out there.
Oh, I think that's me. All right, pattern.
So we all know this district is 60% Republican.
Right.
How can we win others over? And what does a Democratic victory look like here?
Great question. I think this one's an interesting because it is 60-40 historically, but when you look at different cross-sections and different elections, there have been sparks of hope where it has been better than that. And also right now, when you look at this, we've got a big gap. There's almost a pincher movement where we've got up to double-digit gaps being covered with Democratic victories right now with the potential of a wave, right? And then we have the opportunity for folks here, like many of us, to be able to reach out to other people who usually aren't engaged as closely within, I think, elections as Democrats. So when I'm looking at that, my background, I thought I was actually a conservative when I first kind of came out of high school and graduated, because I grew up deer hunting, snowmobiling, doing all the things, being in the military that were shared traditions with people who are in rural. And to this day, it still is something I share with those folks. We don't agree always on things, but we can understand each other and respect each other. And so I think having the opportunity in this district that is very complex, very gerrymandered, we're going to have to be able to build some inroads with those folks who see the insanity and say, this is the wrong path. And they don't like fascism either, right? And so they see the trappings that look like it, and they're getting uncomfortable. And so we need to animate our base and get all of our folks out there who are engaged and get more people out the vote, and then also pull in some of these people who are these newly minted independents. That's what they're calling.
And they voted for Glenn because that's who they knew. One of the things I want to make sure is that people know us. They, like several of my colleagues here have said, we're in this together. We're not running against each other. We're running against Glenn. So one of the things that I want to make sure is that those folks that either didn't vote because they didn't want to vote for Glenn and they didn't know who John was, or they had voted for Glenn and they had voted for the Republican Party previously, but have become so disenchanted. So one of the benefits that I have is I grew up rural. I grew up on the farm. I know how to talk to farmers. We still have goats on our little property just down the road here. Like, I understand those rural communities, like, it's in my blood. And reaching out to them and saying that, hey, there's another option out there than just always following that our line is actually a really great way to bridge that gap. Because a lot of those folks are not way out over here or way out over there. They're all kind of in the middle, and they're just looking for somebody that they can actually trust and believe in. So.
I think we need to start looking at the problems. We need to start showing the rural vote and everybody else that we're all in this together, that we're trying to make everything affordable. A lot of these problems are very complex. You have to look at the housing problem with all the different things that make a housing unaffordable to a lot of people nowadays. Why is health insurance so expensive? What I bring to that is I'm a fiscal conservative. I think we need to get rid of that tax cut for the billionaires. We need to start taxing the equity companies that are making billions and buying mansions in Connecticut. We need to make sure that these monopolies stop buying all the farms and condensing them in the housing market for the conglomerates or the equity firms buying lots of apartment buildings and houses and jacking up the rates. We need to start making everything affordable, and that's how we're going to win, making sure that people are taken care of.
Thank you. I recently looked up because I was curious where we're at, and the last thing I saw was that we're an R+8 or R+7 district. And just last week, someone flipped an R+20 district, I think in Florida. They elected for the first time in 40-something years. We're seeing that all across the country, that Democrats are flipping districts red to blue. This entire year, all these elections we've had this year, Democrats have flipped every single blue to red. There has been no red to blue flips. And so that shows me that we have lots of momentum coming up in the next election. But to answer that question, I think one of my advantages is having served in local government is I have a record that I can show to folks. It was funny, I had someone comment, they said, Democrats never lower taxes. And I was like, well, I actually have. And I have a record to show that I have. I served, and when I served in local government, I passed 6 budgets. multi-million-dollar budgets, and we lower taxes without having to take a chainsaw to vital services. And so I think one of my advantages where I can connect with people on the right who are more conservative is that, like I've actually done these things. I'm not just saying I'm going to do these things. I've actually done them and will do them and can have those conversations because I come from the nonpartisan realm. The other side of that is just because we're running as Democrats doesn't mean we're going to win all the Democratic votes. We need to win both moderates in the party and people on the left and progressives. And so I think my policies will do that. We'll bring in people from the left, but also people who are independent-minded and also who are disillusioned by what's been happening on the right.
I think it's really interesting that right now, this district, as it exists right now, there is a case right now where we might get redistricted before the election even happens, which we've been all following. But this district right now is in an interesting microcosm of very rural areas and a few cities and a few towns. And I think just we as Democrats have to realize people don't dislike our policies. They dislike the fact that they don't feel connected to us in a lot of cases. I've gone to some of the places I've gone to that have had the best results have said, we haven't ever seen a Democratic politician, ever. I've been going to a lot of different churches and just show up and say, hey, I'm running for Congress. If you have any questions, please feel free and ask. It's that simple. And it is places that we haven't been in a long time. I've been in a union for 17 years now, and I directly benefit from Democratic policies, and there isn't a single Republican who can say they've benefited a union. And we have had so many of our members say, well, I don't know what the Democrats do for us. And I have had a lot of experience educating them as to exactly what we do for us. So that's one area where I think we really need to get back to the constituencies that bought us past success.
All right, and Amanda. So this is a multi-part question.
Okay, I'm ready.
Will you support election reforms, nonpartisan redistricting, ranked choice voting, proportional representation? And then I'm going to give you a choice because I want to keep it tight on this. The same person asked, would you support Medicare for all? So you can pick or choose or answer both.
Okay, so I'm going to do Medicare for all first. Yes. Okay, now back to the other stuff. So one of the things I really think that is lacking right now is feeling like our representation represents us. So I think we need to have term limits in Congress. Like, there's no reason, and our founders never set this up, to have people in representation for perpetuity. There's no reason that somebody should be a literal career politician in our government. So then, as far as ranked choice voting and that sort, I love it. I think that that is an opportunity for more people to get involved and for more people to have their voice heard. I think it would engage more voters, and I'm hoping that that would actually bring people in that have felt disenfranchised and have felt like they have not had their voice heard. There was so many in there.
The election reforms, redistricting, ranked choice voting, and proportional representation.
Oh, and as far as the redistricting, while we've put a lot of effort into the 6th District and getting our names out there, I am fully supportive of a system that is not gerrymandered. Nothing should be rigged. This should be a representation for all. There's no reason whatsoever that we should have, in the 6 seats that we have, that we only have 2 people that actually represent the 60 or the 40% of our people.
Let's go for the Medicare for all first. I believe that 1/5 of our economy is based on health care right now. There is going to be a lot of pain whenever we do that reform, and it's going to have to be phased in because you have an awful lot of insurance companies, medical facilities, and that are counting on us to go ahead and sustain their way of life. So it's going to be a slow process when it does happen. But we need to start the process of weeding some of these jobs into some other career fields or trying to make it affordable for the rest of us, because we didn't guarantee the insurance companies to make a profit for all the layers of bureaucracy to make our healthcare system work. Same thing for the hospital systems. Why have volunteers when you have $1 million, $2 million CEO of the company or the person who's running your hospital? Let's go for redistricting. Once we had something called GAB here in Wisconsin, the Government Accountability Board that started forming the things without political influence in making it so that you had representation that was fair. And it was toss up those districts. It didn't really matter because the people elected their officials, not the officials elected where their district was going to be. And that's the way we need to go back to what we had earlier.
You can finish your sentence. I won't beat you up.
We don't think you're that much of a tyrant.
So yes to Medicare for All. As I said, I have a plan to get us there, and I'd love your feedback on it, so please read into that. When it comes to electoral reform, yes, I support nonpartisan redistricting. I'm looking forward to the 2 lawsuits that are currently being reviewed that would make our current maps, which are very much gerrymandered, to fair. So that might be what helps put us over the edge in this district to win. I support any of those electoral reforms, ranked choice voting, proportional representation. But I think to go farther than that, electoral reforms by themselves are not enough. We really do need to have campaign finance reform because money in politics is just too egregious. I mean, and especially here in Wisconsin, I mean, we've seen the last few state Supreme Court races where you have folks like Elon and tech billionaires and other people pouring money. And this is on both sides. I'm not saying we're not at fault for using lots of money too, but we need to change the way things are run. And, you know, for us candidates all running very grassroots campaigns, it's hard to break through that noise when you have, you know, when billionaires are selecting our politicians by, you know, funding them and putting them at the top. So, you know, we need to ban corporate PACs from being able to donate funds. We need to overturn Citizens United, and we need to get to a place where we're focusing on the candidates and their policies, not how much money they have.
When she first asked that question, I was like, can we just all say yes and get it over with? Because I didn't hear a bad idea in the bunch. And I'm glad you brought up campaign finance reform because it is the bedrock of where we started to have really severe problems with our electoral process. When you can basically buy an election, how is anyone ever going to compete with that? Well, we're all trying. And I think we're doing a pretty good job. But it is really hard when you know your opponent is just going to blitz you with TV ads towards the end. And that is one of the reasons why I've been so insistent on we all need to get out into the communities and get ourselves known. Because at the very basic level, this is a put a name to a face and know what they represent. And yeah, on the Medicare for All, there's going to be some version of this put up in the next 4 years. And we will have an opportunity because as bad as they are doing right now, and as much as they are destroying of our country, the nice thing about it is that's the situation where you can actually make change. And I think we're going to have some progressive candidates in office who are actually going to back up what they say, which is right now, I will tell you, I will be voting for Medicare for All or some version of it in the next few years.
All right, thank you. So Medicare for All, yes, I support it, and also I agree with John. It will take a lot of work to make sure to get the steps there, and there are simple steps we can start with, like enabling Medicare to negotiate drug prices, which are a huge driver of costs. And as you get that pressure in the market from Medicare negotiating that, everyone else can benefit. So there are steps we can take to that. As far as electoral reform, we need to make sure people are choosing electicians or their electeds, not the electeds choosing the people, right? And we are way off the deep end here. So nonpartisan maps being drawn, absolutely. I've also heard very good arguments for smaller, less populous congressional districts. You know, when the framers went out and designed this, they were thinking, I think the numbers were it would be around 5,000 to 10,000 people per district, not 500,000. So it becomes a lot harder to have proportional representation when you have 500,000 people districts, right? So I think there's also a case to be made for a lot more representatives to make sure there's more proportional representation. And then also, once you get into that voting, once it is proportional, make sure that with something like stacked choice voting, you have a little bit more chance that people who might otherwise not rise to the top can, and you can see where that kind of where the makeup is crossing over. And so I think those are really important parts of this to help make sure that we have a vibrant voting structure, not to mention every single person who holds a passport and is paying tax should also have representation. No taxation without representation. DC, Puerto Rico.
Go. I think it's down to John.
Oh, sorry.
All right, and there were two questions that were really similar. What's your position on data centers in rural areas? Your current thoughts on AI use and the problematic issue of hyperscale projects with no guardrails for energy requirements or protections of customers. So thoughts on the data centers.
Hyperscale, that's the first time I've ever heard that phrase. How many people know that one? Ooh, got 2, 3, 4. Let's go for data centers. We have one in the project for Port Washington and Beaver Dam. They're projected to run the same amount of electricity as all of us in the state of Wisconsin, or I think it's over half of the total household usage of electricity versus their electricity. It hasn't been sold to any of us why we need this in the first place, and I think they need to come forward to the public and sell their projects instead of finding a municipality that's going to approve their application. That's the way it is right now. I am not sold on taking down my clothesline trying to save electricity so that they can go ahead and use my electricity for a data center to make cryptocurrency. They need to have more regulations, whether that is in Congress or whether that is the state trying to do those things, which the president just signed his executive order trying to stop us from doing that. But we need to start knowing why these places are going to happen. What were the other questions?
Well, and it was all on the data center base.
All in the data centers. So I want to know more, and I want it sold to us why we need these things, because it hasn't been sold to us.
So I'm not going to say a blanket statement of I oppose all data centers or I support all of them, because really it is a case-by-case basis. And, you know, there can be a case made that it might be beneficial to the overall economy of the local community. I haven't seen that yet. And that's the real issue, is that we have a lot of these data centers that are backed by large tech billionaires who are just trying to become more rich, who aren't even from Wisconsin. We're focusing on Wisconsin, but this is happening all over the country. But where I'm really concerned is its impact on the environment, on our water, how it's going to raise electricity prices, how it can pollute groundwater, a number of issues that typically aren't addressed. And this is why I think it's so important that we are supporting our local governments, because these are the people who are going to be making these decisions. And we need to make sure that there's transparency. A lot of complaints with the Port Washington one was people felt like there wasn't transparency in the process, that they had already made a decision, you know, before it was even presented to the public, which happens a lot of times. And so, you know, people need to be speaking out. I think us as potential federal representatives need to also be speaking out and clearly stating where we stand on the issue. But where we come in as federal representatives is setting the regulations. There really are no regulations right now regarding AI or data centers. And quite frankly, and I truly don't mean this as a knock on older folks, but a lot of the people in Congress are older, don't have any understanding of how AI even works or its implications. And so how do we expect them to have the foresight to set these policies? I would like to do that.
So I think a lot of the people, this addresses directly my union. We'd love to build these data centers, but the problem is after that, we don't really get any information about how they're going to be long-term powered. And that is something we hope to, we'd like to develop the generation to, power them. But we haven't really heard who's going to pay for that. And I think one of the things that I'm hoping very soon will come through at the state level, because I think a lot of these are going to be on their way to being developed before any of us could possibly be in office. We have to address this now, because by the time we get into office, they may have already built a lot of them. And it's an issue that has been coming for some time. What I'm worried about is, let's say we start building them. AI is not, or large language models are not AI. They're very good at certain tasks, but I think the reason why they're getting so many funds from so many businesses is they think they can replace workers, and they just can't. They're not that capable in that way, and they're trying to use it for that. And I think a lot of people actually have been mentioning there may be a bubble in this area, and what happens to those data centers if they're in the midst of being processed and all of a sudden people figure out we don't really need that many.
All right, so data centers, like you mentioned, we have one in Port Washington. I'm in Mequon, so very close to it, and I talk to a lot of people about it on the regular, also Beaver Dam. I think this is a really tricky issue because innovation has been the engine of America's growth, and so I don't want to be a Luddite and fight against this when it is absolutely the forefront of where innovation and new economy and changes in the economy are coming from. But that being said, as my fellow folks here have said, we need to have transparency and we need to understand what the impacts are going to be. Because there are different ways these can be built, right? There are ways that you can build it where it does consume less water, and you could talk about the new power being brought online, having solar panels or wind, or maybe in small scale and nuclear. There's so many ways. The question is, how is it going to be done? What is the impact? Is it transparent? And are there teeth to the contracts that when they say they're going to build it, that we verify you are going to do what you said you did? And how are we going to check that? So I believe there's room for us to have a federal baseline of what the requirements are to make sure that, yes, these data centers can go ahead if the people in the communities vote for it, and that we know what the impacts will be that are transparent, and that there will be teeth to the contract and verification that they do it. So I think there is a risk of a bubble, as Mike said, because you've got a number of companies competing in parallel, so we don't want more Foxcons, so we have to be mindful there. And I actually do have a big concern. I build with AI, I understand it. If you go to my business website, it built an agent. It is changing rapidly, and it is going to cause job displacement. Absolutely. And we need to get ahead of the retraining that's going to be necessary and how to support people as this displacement occurs. Thank you.
So I really appreciate this question. As a researcher, I have dug into this, right? Like my job for 20 plus years was digging into the data and looking at the research and doing the analysis. So I've got 4 concerns. First is the environment, as you guys have mentioned, but the water quality and concerns that we have with the chemicals that are going to be put into these systems to make sure that they're doing the right cooling. Then the cleaning afterwards. If they have a company come in saying, we cleaned it up. Do you know how many times that I have seen a company say, don't worry, it's all clean, it's clean, it's clean. And then 30 years later, we find that these contaminants are in our groundwater and they're affecting people and causing cancer. So the quality and quantity of water is my first concern. Second concern is the energy consumption. The Department of Energy released some statistics based on current data centers, and there is a possibility that by 2028, data centers will consume over 12% of all energy in the U.S. 12%. They're at like 3% right now. So that in and of itself scares me. Then we have to put up transmission lines, blasting through people's backyards, through neighborhoods. And I don't know about you, but the last thing I want to do is put up more transition lines just to power these companies. Third is the jobs. As Mike said, it's great for building. It's great for the unions. My problem is these companies have not shown that they're actually using union builders. Okay. Number 4 was accountability.
right, so again, 2 questions fairly similar. What makes you electable? And then having heard the other primary candidates, why do you believe you have a better chance to beat the Republican incumbent? So electability and...
Electability, I'll start with, I've been elected 3 times in Winnebago County, which is not known for being blue. I've beaten Republicans in the past, and I've ran and put my name out there. I've lost too, and I've learned from those lessons. But I think what I've mostly learned is policy is important, but also people are important, and being able to connect with people on that personal level, having that respectful dialogue. I've already seen in many conversations, whether in person or social media, that it resonates with people. You know, in one post I talked about my experience, what I've done, and someone said, "You lost me at DEI," or, you know, all I needed to hear is that you've wasted money on these, you know, wasteful committees. And I responded, I said, well, actually, we saved money because we actually did things on this committee, and people weren't paid. This was volunteerism. But, you know, I have a record, again, to show what I've done. A lot of this is perception, how the general voting populace perceives you as a candidate. And when you can say, this is my record, this is what I've actually done, and this is what I will do if elected, that goes a long way. And so, again, while I say I'm the youngest candidate, which, you know, I think does resonate with people of all ages, we bring that energy, that excitement. I have the record and the experience to back it up.
One of the nice things about this election is I'm not going to speak ill of any of my fellow candidates, and they've all committed to do the same, and that is something that is actually fairly rare in politics, I will tell you now. I think I have a unique opportunity to reach constituencies that we have not been reaching in a very long time. I have been talking to so many unions over the last bit because really, unions are an area where we have long been supported by at the upper level, but the rank and file has slowly become more and more Republican. This is an area where we can just on a very basic level say, look, you're not being represented by your representative, and I will. And that is an opportunity that I don't think we can pass up. And I've been in a lot of areas where just getting in the door is hard. And I've had a rather unique opportunity to come in and just talk with people, and they listen long enough and they're like, wait, are you a Democrat? And I was like, yeah. Because on just the issues, they don't really recognize, oh, Democrats are for universal health care. They don't recognize what we're for. We've just been demonized for so long. So it gets me in the door.
All right, thanks, Mike. So, you know, what makes me electable? It's interesting because I am an outsider to the political system here. And I think what I've found so far is I share so many concerns with so many people of all walks here, both Democrats, Republicans, conservatives. MAGA is a little bit of a different animal. But I think the authenticity of the concern and the motivation for the change I'm fighting for and the way I can approach it. And then I do have some background and shared culture with people who traditionally aren't inside of our party, and that helps me in this district to be able to get the message through that otherwise the door gets shut in your face. And I can say that because I've knocked on doors with Veterans for Harris shirt, or you name it, and they stop, and it's, you know, first they go, MAGA, and then they look at you and go, wait a minute, why are you out here, and why are you doing this? And so it creates interesting bridges for conversations, which is what it's going to take in this district. And I think being a political outsider is an asset because I certainly am not aiming to be a lifetime politician. That's not where I'm coming from. I'm in this because we need the change, and that's what brought me here. So, you know, what I feel like makes me unique is my constant has been leadership through time of change and uncertainty. Ambiguity in the business world, ambiguity in the deployment and helping young soldiers. And so that's been something that has just been a constant throughout my life and career, and I feel that it's really an asset when you look at we're in uncertain times in so many ways, and we're going to have somebody who can really quickly think on their feet and then marshal people to a plan, and that's something I've done in a lot of walks of life. Thank you.
Okay, so one of the things that I think actually makes me a little bit more electable is just my experience in the federal government. I know how it works. I know how federal government appropriations works. I know that, admittedly, if we ran our household budget like the federal government runs their budget, we'd be living in a cardboard box. But I understand that. I understand what, we can't just go out to buy a pack of paper at the, at the Office Depot. There's regulations and there's processes and there's red tape and bureaucracy and everything else that you need to get through. But I know how to navigate those systems. But I'm also deeply committed to my community by being a substitute teacher, by being part of my church, by being in the Scouts, by being in so many other community organizations. I feel the heartbeat of this district. Growing up on the other side of the district, we've keep talking about how gerrymandered it is. I grew up in Sheboygan County. It is 2 hours away from here. But I have my deep roots there because my family is still there. And my family is still farming, and they also know the rural community. So by having those deep roots, having that connection with across the district with those communities, I think that makes me have a unique ability to run against Glenn. And that's what I'm hoping that I can really convey to the folks of the 6th District. So, thank you.
Great. You ready?
Yes.
Grace. Grace means a lot to every one of us in some different way. For me, it has always been that thing that allows somebody to talk to me when they know that they're looking for something that they want to have something in common with me. I can honestly say I am the oldest person in this race, and I have the most experience because I've been in almost every single professional background that there is, from teaching to prisons. But people have always given me grace. People have talked to me that are serving 2 life terms and want me to take them down to take a shower, get naked in front of me, and go into the shower. I have never felt threatened by anyone, and that's including in the communities. People see that I'm a conservative, fiscal conservative. They know that my military background with my retired Army hat is something that they can resonate with, that veteran with the MAGA flag talks to me. He may not agree with me in the beginning, but he says, you should come back here sometime and talk. Maybe the fish will start biting down in Menasha, near the dam. People want to give you grace because they find the commonality in you. They find that humanity in you.
So that was the end of the questions. Were we going to give them each a chance to do their final wrap-up, or do we think that was good?
Yeah, we can do that. We are 10 minutes, about 12 minutes to 12, so I really want to wrap this up before 12, so yeah, go ahead.
30 seconds.
I'll be real quick. But this is vitally important. Right now is perhaps the most important time in politics we're ever going to have. And I know you've heard that a lot, but this is actually an election that we may not get another one if we don't win enough. And that's not a joke. So right now, I would encourage all of you, whoever resonates with you, among us, among other political candidates, go out, volunteer, give of your time, and encourage others to do the same.
Yeah, like Mike said, I think it's a really interesting time, and this is, before we got into this, Glenn is uniquely already probably one of the most weak Republican candidates out there, but it's so gerrymandered. But we're seeing the change happen. We're seeing the trappings of a wave happening, so start to have hope. It's great to see how engaged everyone is. Let's go out and help fight for the spring race first, because it starts here in Wisconsin, and then let's turn that battle into November, because I think there's a new window of opportunity emerging here. So thank you.
I would like to thank the Columbia County Democrats for having this forum. This was incredible. I really appreciate the opportunity to share my views and listen to the views of my fellow candidates. One thing I just want to leave you with is I want to listen, I want to serve, and I want to lead with integrity. And my name is Amanda Bell. It's amandabellforcongress.org. Oops, bump that.
I would like to thank you all for inviting me here. You'll see me here in the spring, and I'm thinking about going down the Fox River and trying to make it to Oshkosh. That or a bicycle ride would probably be easier sometimes. What I want you to take away from this is that you have a lot of strong candidates. I want you to get involved. And for me personally, I'd like it to be me that you're helping for the events that we have here in Portage. But if it's one of them, that is great too. So get involved.
Of course, thank you for hosting this and having us and asking all your questions. It's really important that we get these opportunities to do that. Just to leave you off again, my name's Aaron Wojciechowski, or Wojo for short, and I'd be honored to have your support or your participation in my campaign, because it's really going to be important that we win. And I thank you for being so engaged this early, a year out. We got a lot of work to do ahead of us, and I look forward to earning your vote. And again, you can go to wojoforcongress.com to learn more about me and my platform. Thank you.
Right?
My wife was calling me the entire time.
I like your friendly phrases, by the way.
I got them at the Valley Victory.
Oh, did you?
Were you on the night shift?
Yeah, I just got off at 7. Oh my
We're gonna do pictures. Picture?
Yep, I'm gonna move this chairs out of the way. We get a good nice. Whoa! All right.